Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order, please. Doug, are there any public speakers?
There are no public speakers today.
Fantastic. Okay. Next, we have the approval of the February 20th minutes. And may I please have a motion to approve them? Second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Doug, can you take us through the work plan?
We have no changes to the work plan today. So the next item would be Budget Watch. And this month's Budget Watch will focus on February preliminary operating results and subsidy cash results through March. Starting with operating results for February, passenger revenues for the month were $6 million unfavorable, which increased the unfavorable year-to-date variance to $30 million, a lot of that being the result of low subway and New York City Transit bus ridership, which was impacted in January from the winter storm Grayson. MTA Bus was favorable for February but remained unfavorable year-to-date. The commuter railroads were close to target for both February and on a year-to-date basis. Toll revenue was favorable by $3 million in February, and that increased the favorable year-to-date variance to $7 million. Moving to expenses, preliminary expenses for February and year-to-date were slightly favorable, and that reflected higher labor expenses, which included higher overtime expenses, and those are offset at transit primarily. Those are offset by favorable results at the other agencies. Debt service costs were unfavorable, slightly unfavorable for the month, and that was due to the timing of deposits. They are slightly favorable year-to-date. Moving to subsidies through March. Subsidies in the month of March were unfavorable by $25.2 million. The year-to-date variance was unfavorable by $17.2 million. However, those numbers were severely impacted by a timing variance for MTA aid of approximately $22 million. So in reality, the subsidy numbers are pretty much on spot. Within the subsidy, mortgage recording tax collections were unfavorable both for March and year-to-date, and those are offset by favorable March and year-to-date results for the urban tax and petroleum business tax. Payroll mobility tax receipts were on target for March and remain favorable year-to-date. So to try to sum up, overall preliminary net results were roughly on target for the month and year-to-date. It's still early in the year to try to draw any conclusions. What we are looking at, though, are unfavorable results for New York City Transit passenger revenue and unfavorable mortgage recording tax receipts. So we'll be monitoring that. Any questions? Okay. Finance Watch is next. Marcia Tanyan is here to deliver that.
Good afternoon. Finance Watch begins on page 20. I'll just go briefly through a couple items. First, of course, the item that I believe you're all aware that on March 12th, S&P downgraded the transportation revenue bonds to an A+ with a negative watch. This was under their mass transit enterprise rating, so it's an enterprise rating that they're applying to our transportation revenue bonds despite the gross pledge and that protects bondholders on those bonds. The one thing that they did note was the debt service coverage. That was the factor that was causing the issue. And they noted the need for additional revenues, gross revenues, that are sustainable and recurring that they would be looking for. Also, the next item is that we do have an FRN remarketing, and the competitive pricing will take place tomorrow. Pat will have the results of that for you in the April meeting. I'm happy to take any questions on anything. Mr. Paley?
What do you believe the effect of the lower rating will have on the interest rates that we will get this week?
That's a good question. We don't know, and any day in the muni market can vary depending. So I don't know if we'll be able to correlate it exactly, but we certainly will report to let you know what the result was of the competitive pricing.
And we have historical basis of what we've gotten in the past on these type of bonds.
That's true, we do. But one thing is, though, every day in the muni market may vary. So if we came in, for example, in September of 2017 with our refunding and then came back in November, we saw slightly different results even when the ratings were the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to now move to MTA HQ and all agency items, and David Ross is here to take us through those items.
Thank you, Doug. There's one action item, and that's the all-agency annual procurement report. We're asking the board to authorize the filing of the all-agency procurement report with the State of New York for January through December 2017 as required under the State Public Authorities Law. The report is on Director's Desk, Document Center, and can be found on the MTA website at MTA Information.
Is any,
Any questions? I'll just move on. So next we have two MTA HQ reports and information.
Is there a motion?
Oh, there's motion. I'm
Need a
sorry.
motion for that.
does anybody have any questions? Have a motion?
So move.
Second? All those approved? Nays?
Okay. So next, we have two MTA HQ reports and information items. The first of those is the contract change order report for the fourth quarter of 2017. It reports on change orders with values between $250,000 and $750,000. Contracts over $750,000 are included in the board's monthly procurement packages. The second is a prompt payment annual report for 2017. This report presents MTA-wide success in meeting mandated prompt payment deadlines and the interest penalties incurred as a result of late payments. You'll see that in 2017, the MTA paid about $52 million in interest on invoices valued at about $11.8 billion. 52,000 on invoice about $11.8 billion. This is a 10.1% decrease vis-a-vis the interest paid in 2016. The next is that the procurements for headquarters and the agencies. For headquarters, there are 17 procurements for a total of $102,461,234, and there are 7 competitive procurements for personal services contracts and a modification to an existing agreement for a total of $7,762,723.
Questions? Motion? Second? All those in favor? Nay? Okay.
So there are 10 procurement actions for ratification pursuant to Executive Order 168 and its extensions for a grand total of $94,698,511. One action is an MTA HQ item for $1.5 million, and the rest are New York City Transit items. 8 of the 9 New York City Transit actions were competitive, and the HQ item extends a contract that was originally the product of an informal RFP.
Questions? Motion? Second? All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay, next on the agenda, we have an action item for the MTA commuter railroads. We're seeking to obtain approval to revise fare policy applicable to the MTA commuter railroads to extend the refund period for unused portions of one-way round-trip and 10-trip tickets for an additional 2-year period to bring the railroads into compliance with a recent amendment to the Public Authorities Law. Miscellaneous other ticket types would be similarly extended. The extension is not applicable to time-based tickets.
Questions? A motion, please? Second? All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay, for Metro North,
Can we hold on
there's-
one second, Commissioner Albert?
Sorry, I meant to ask this on,
Sure.
on a previous one. On this conversion on the R46s and other cars from fluorescent to LED lights, do you know if the color of the light is going to be the same? Because, you know, New York City DOT has replaced a lot of the street lamps, and the color is definitely not the same. They sort of throw an eerie glow right now.
Steve Plachocki is here
Yeah.
from Transit.
I can get back to you on the color. I know they're definitely brighter, and you know whether it's called a cool white or a light white, but the color itself is not supposed to change, but it's absolutely supposed to be brighter, and it is much brighter.
And
But I'll
you-
get back to you if there's going to be some sort of a
Okay,
tint or
thank
other.
you.
Okay. Did we get a vote on the action item?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. So we're back.
So
Yeah.
for Metro North, there's only a proposed modification to a contract, adding $1 million to a contract with Dayton T. Brown to provide engineering services required to prepare the revenue service demonstration report for the Federal Railroad Administration for positive train control certification.
Any questions? Can I have a motion? Second? All those in favor? Opposed?
So we have two items for Long Island Railroad totaling $23.1 million. One proposes award of a design-build contract to Forte Construction for renovations at the Northport Station costing $13.4 million. The other ratifies an emergency declaration through which Power Resources International was engaged for mainline second-track motor generator upgrades for about $9.9 million.
Questions? Motion? Second, please. All those in favor? Opposed?
For New York City Transit, there's one modification to extend and provide $1.38 million for additional funding for a contract that was originally awarded by the Port Authority. The contract is with Downtown Design Partnership, a partnership formed by AECOM. It offers various aspects of the Cortlandt Street Station project.
Any questions? Motion? Second? All those in favor? Opposed?
So there are no items for bridges and tunnels or FMTAC. This concludes procurements. Doug?
David Florio is here to discuss real estate items.
Thank you, Doug. There are 5 action items for real estate. The first is an approval of revised and updated 2018 Real Estate Department policies and procedures. This is mandated by the Public Authorities Law. The procedures were provided in the Director's desk. However, the resolution was only handed out to you today, so our apologies for that. The second is a master license between Suffolk County and MTA Police for the installation of antennas at various county-owned sites in Suffolk County. The third item is a consent granted by the MTA for a permanent easement given by Midtown Trackage, the owner of the Hudson Line, to New York City DEP to provide for the maintenance and construction of a water tunnel under the Metro-North Hudson Line in the town of Wappinger. The fourth item is an expansion of a lease that already exists between Long Island Railroad and DASO LLC for an expansion of the Long Island Railroad's medical unit office at 300 Old Country Road in Mineola. And the last item are permanent easements granted to the Long Island from Suffolk County to provide for the installation of PSE&G aerial power lines to facilitate the mainline double track project. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I do have a question about, just could you explain the Midtown tracking?
Sorry?
Could you explain the Midtown tracking item? I understand Midtown tracking is technically the owner, and so their consent is needed.
It was our consent. They're the owner. They're granting the easement to...
Our consent is needed...
Since we are the ground lessee.
For their consent, essentially.
Well, for their easement
Right.
to DEP, correct.
Does that require a payment as well?
We received $1,900 is consistent with the
Could you just explain that? They get a payment and we get a small percentage of that?
No, we received our own payment separately. They are entitled to an administrative fee paid separately. There's a $2,500 fee they received. It's pursuant to the ground lease we have with them, where if this were condemned...
For all of Grand Central Station and the
Correct.
tracking.
Right.
So basically, the only payments involved are these de minimis administrative fees and our fee.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, as I read this, we're getting $1,950,000 for the easement. Is that correct?
I beg your pardon?
It says an appraisal was completed. The fair market value was $1,950,000 for the easement. This is the Wappinger, the New York City DEP.
Right. The market value was determined to be $1,950.
Oh, I said I missed this. Okay, that's all. Okay, all right. Now, Midtown Trackage Ventures. Is that owned by us?
No, it's a separate company that owns the Harlem Hudson Lines and Grand Central Terminal.
And who?
We lease the land from them.
We lease from them.
Long term, yeah.
With a, as I understand, the right of purchase at the end of the lease.
And they were created by Penn Central?
Penn Central became American Premier Underwriters in the
Right.
1980s, and then they sold the interest to a number of different companies, Midtown Trackage being the most recent iteration.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So,
Can I have a motion? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second? I guess all are in favor of adjourning the meeting. Thank
Indeed.
you.